regular meeting of the Historical Commission on April 21, 2021. The time is approximately 7 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Klinger? You're on the...
Here. Yes, I was on mute.
Thank you.
Here and off mute.
Commissioner Warstad is absent today. Commissioner Zaremski? Also on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Russell? Not yet. Commissioner Pepper?
Commissioner Russell is present.
Oh, welcome. Commissioner Pepper?
Also present.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Present.
And Chair Morocco.
Also here. So we do have a quorum. So let's start with the salute to the flag, and I've recruited Commissioner Fernandez to lead us in that. So if you can do that, that would be great.
Sure thing. Thank you, Chairman Murico. If you'll follow me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so as I've done with all the other meetings, I'm going to state our purpose as set forth in the city ordinance. The Historic Commission is to investigate, maintain, and catalog all historical information, documents, records, and pictures that would be of general interest to the city and its citizens, to compile records and recordings, to promote the keeping of a written historical record of the city in narrative form, to be an advisory body, and to perform volunteer services at the Redondo Beach Historical Museum. So let's get to the first item on, or actually, I guess, item D on the agenda, which is approving the order of the agenda. Is there a motion to do that?
Motion to approve order of agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Klinger moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And
Okay, so as we did in the last meeting, rather than doing roll call votes on everything, I'm just going to ask, are there any objections to approving the order of agenda? Okay, hearing none, then the order is approved, and we move on to the blue folder items. And you should have received today from Director Koike two blue folder items. Both of them relate to the report for the Path of History, and I just want to clarify that what the titles are of those two items. Give me 1 second to get to that page. So they're related to the Path of History. One is titled Leadership Redondo Class of 2002 Presentation. It's actually a PowerPoint presentation that was created by the city on October 26, 2011. I believe Maggie Healy was the one who presented it. The first slide is the Leadership Redondo 2002 project. The second one is it's called Capital Improvement Program Project Information, and just so it's clear as part what that is, it is from the 2018 to 2023 City Council presentation, and the page that was included is the cover page and the item that relates to the Path of History. So those are the two items that are going to be part of that will be a part of the committee report on Path of History, but I do need a motion to have that included as part of the record. So can I get a motion on that?
Motion to receive and file.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Pepper, second. Is there any objection to receiving and filing the blue folder items? Okay, so hearing none, so the blue folder items are accepted, filed, and we will be discussing them when we get to the appropriate part of the meeting. Okay, now we move on to the consent calendar. And the consent calendar has 4 parts to it: the affidavit of posting, the approval of minutes from February 17, 2021 meeting, the museum donation and fund report, and a moment in beach history, which if there's any commissioner who wishes to pull an item from the consent calendar, now is the time to raise that. Commissioner Fernandez.
Chairman Marocco, I wish to pull the moment of history from the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there any other item from the consent calendar that any commissioner wishes to pull? Okay, hearing none. We will then vote on the consent calendar items, which at this point is F1, affidavit of posting, F2, approval of minutes, and F3, museum donation and fund report. And I will actually ask Director Koike for a roll call vote on this.
All right. Commissioner Klinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Zaremski. Oh, you're on mute.
If you want to raise your hand, that would be the same equivalent as a yes, okay?
Right. Commissioner Russell.
I apologize. My Zoom just went blank there
Oh,
for
no.
a moment, so I'm back now.
All right. So for the record, Commissioner Zaremski,
Yes.
Commissioner Pepper,
There's a thumbs up on this.
You raise
Oh,
your
it's-
hand as
Commissioner Fernandez,
Aye.
and Chair Marocco, and again, Commissioner Warstad is absent.
Okay, and I should ask, and I guess I'm delinquent in doing that. Are there any public comments or any members of the public wanted to speak on any of the consent calendar items?
Katira, do you have any?
We do not have any public comments for consent items.
Okay. So now we move to section G, which is the excluded consent calendar item, and Commissioner Fernandez had us pull the moment of history. So Commissioner Fernandez, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Marocco. Just so I'm clear, this is, I'm now going to read the moment of history.
You've pulled it. If you want to read it or you want to read your introduction, it's in the actual papers that were
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Chairman Marocco. So I will be giving the Aris Mendez moment of history this evening. But before I begin, I wanted to take a quick moment to recognize and pay deference to the late chair of this historical committee, Albert P. Aris Mendez. Chair Aris Mendez was able to support his love of history and his community in Redondo Beach when he was appointed to the committee in 2016, and then served as chair from 2017 to 2020. We thank him for his dedication and honor his memory by naming our moment in Redondo Beach history in his honor. This meeting's moment is the Redondo Beach Veterans Park Library. Redondo Beach established its first library in 1895 when the city assumed responsibility for a reading room started 2 years earlier on Wharf Number 1 by the Women's Christian Temperance Union. In November of 1908, Redondo City trustees organized a 5-member library commission. On January 2nd, 1909, the library moved to room 5 in the west wing of the City Hall at 301 Emerald Street. Miss N.F. Allison became the new librarian. Well, the library proved to be popular and successful, and by 1917, the collection filled the entire west wing of the City Hall. By 1928, the need for additional space could no longer be ignored, and the Chamber of Commerce suggested a new building be constructed on the site of the old Hotel Redondo, which had been demolished in 1925 after a rather short career of 35 years as a seaside resort. Designed by the noted architect Lovell Bears Pemberton, the new Spanish-Dutch colonial building in Veterans Park on the Esplanade was dedicated on July 2nd, 1930, and this iconic structure served as the main library for the city for 60 years. In 1981, it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. An account of the opening day was published in the July 4th, 1930 Redondo Reflex. Towards the end of the 20th century, Earthquake concerns prompted a consideration of the building safety, and on July 5th, 1991, the city closed the main library in Veterans Park and reopened in temporary quarters in the Redondo Shore Shopping Center. On July 20th, 1993, ground was broken for construction of a permanent library adjacent to City Hall, and 2 years later, on July 8th, 1995, the new Redondo Beach main library opened at 303 North Pacific Coast Highway. The Veterans Park Library was internally remodeled, seismically retrofitted, and reopened in 1996 as a venue for special events. While currently closed due to COVID restrictions and the need for a new service provider, the city hopes to reopen the venue soon to allow locals to host their events and special occasions there for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Fernandez. Can I get a motion to file the Albert Pierre's Mendez Moment of Redondo Beach History?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Kinger, and it looks like Commissioner Zaremski's got a second. Okay. Is there any public discussion on this, by the way, Director Koike?
No, there is not.
Okay. So, is there any objection to receiving and filing the Moment of Redondo Beach History? Okay, hearing none, then it is received and filed. Thank you very much, Commissioner Fernandez, for doing that. I guess next time is my turn to write something up. So we'll move on out of the excluded consent calendar items and onto public participation on non-agenda item. And this is an opportunity for the public to speak about any subject that's not appearing on the agenda that's related to the Historical Commission. The section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Director Koike, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on a non-agenda item?
I will ask Katira. Katira, is there anyone?
No, we do not have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so then we are now concluded with the public participation on non-agenda item. We are now moving to items continued from previous agenda, and there is section I-1, which is a discussion of possible designation of Hopkins Wilderness Park. I think procedurally, because we tabled it to this meeting, it doesn't need a procedural vote to actually bring it off the table. So why don't we turn it over to Director Koike to do the lead-in?
Well, as noted in the February meeting, we were going to have a verbal report from Commissioner Klinger regarding the possible designation of Hopkins Wilderness Park as a historical landmark. Because Commissioner Klinger was not able to join us in February, we did move this item to the section I, items continued from previous agendas. And luckily or fortunately, he's here tonight with us. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Klinger.
Actually, before you do that, I think the protocol is we need to ask if there's any public comment on this before the presentation by Commissioner Klinger. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this topic?
There are currently no members of the public wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, Commissioner Klinger, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I'd like to apologize for being MIA. It's just been a hurricane of events this year. This weekend, I set aside to work on this item. And then a little thing happened in Europe with soccer, as I'm sure the soccer fans know, and I'm heavily into sports research, so I was called on that. So I did get some time to work on it later this week, and again, my apologies. It's just been a flurry of events. That said, I do have a letter that I wrote, kind of a template for a letter that I wrote that I would like to read into the record and discuss, and then go over some of the action items with the subcommittee, and also have your feedback on the letter.
Is the letter long?
No.
So it's not something you're going to share your screen on, or?
I can share my screen on it. It's less than a page.
Oh, well, I'll leave that to the commissioners if they want you to see the actual wording of the letter while you're discussing it, but
If you want me to share my screen, I can just, I was thinking of reading it into the record, and if anybody wants to see it, I'll be happy to share my screen.
okay, why don't you read it in the record and then,
Okay, and I apologize, like, if I'm looking over here, but that's where, like, the letter is, and I have the kind of weird screen set up. The camera is over here, and the screens are there, so.
That's fine.
Okay, so this is directed towards our State Assembly member, Murasuchi, and Senator Van Allen. So, dear Assembly member Murasuchi and Senator Allen, on behalf of the Redondo Beach Historical Commission, the Redondo Beach Library Commission, the Redondo Beach Parks and Rec Commission, and the Redondo Beach City Council, we ask for your assistance in helping the Hopkins Wilderness Park become a California Historical Landmark. According to the California Historical Landmarks Registration website, in order to be designated as a California Historical Landmark, a resource must meet at least one of the criteria listed below, have the approval of the property owners, that's the City of Redondo Beach, be recommended by the State Historical Resource Commission, and be officially designated by the Director of California State Parks. The City of Redondo Beach owns Hopkins Wilderness Park. The criteria that is applicable to Hopkins Wilderness Park states that the resources must be the resource must be the first, last, only, or most significant of its type in the state or within a large geographic region. Hopkins Wilderness Park is the only place that serves as a popular lookout spot for the Chewigna Indians, as a site of the federal government's Nike missile radar tracking system, and continues to serve the City of Redondo Beach as the South Base only overnight camping area, as properly documented by the LA Times article. It's a place where there are scrub trees instead of freeways and cottonwoods in place of condos, a place that experiences tens of thousands of visitors each year and will do so again once COVID-19 is history. A traveler's review noted that the hidden gem of Hopkins Wilderness Park is the never-ending Pacific Ocean breeze. If you want a hidden treasure just a few miles from the beach, a sanctuary in the middle of a concrete jungle surroundings, this is your place. The South Bay's local newspaper, Easy Reader News, refers to Redondo Beach's Wilderness Park as a seaside forest with 4 distinct ecological habitats and 3 overnight campgrounds. The uniqueness of Hopkins Wilderness Park is undeniable and noticed by nearly all of Redondo Beach's permanent residents. We look forward to your support in this project. Thank you, signatures, etc.
okay, have you sent a copy to Director Koike yet?
No, I will do so right after the meeting.
Thank
Okay,
you, and then we can add it to the record.
and can you also state again which people are supposed to be signing off on it? I heard Rex and Parks and the council. You said some other entities as well?
Us as the Historical Commission of Redondo Beach, and also I believe the Library Commission, because they documented the history of the Chewigna Indians fairly well. Our
Okay,
librarians did.
okay. So what are you asking us today to do?
So for this one, just to see if the commission is agreeable to general wording of the letter. And then I do have a couple of action items for the subcommittee to go over. All the motions regarding this have already been passed, so this would just mostly be a receive and file.
Okay,
The action items would be reaching out to the other commissions, the City Council, the State Historical Resources Commission, this is for the subcommittee, the Office of Director of California State Parks, the Chewigna Indians, whomever documents the history of the Nike missile sites, and Redondo residents and businesses who would endorse making the Hopkins Wilderness Park a California Historical Landmark, and also work to acquire the written and cited history of Hopkins Wilderness Park.
any questions or comments from the commissioners? Director Koike?
Have any presentations been given already to get to this point? Or has it mostly been research to get to this point, and then moving forward, it's actually reaching out to other entities?
It's mostly been research. I have spoken to a couple of individual commissioners and a couple of individual city council members. Everybody is very interested in this. but there have been no formal presentations to the commissions.
And who do you think would make sense to be the first group? Like maybe Recreation and Parks Commission?
Probably them or the Library Commission and also the City Council. I think the presentations can be made concurrently. And if it's the City Council, it could probably come up as a mayor item or somewhere along there.
Right.
And it would be a fairly quick item for the City Council because I know how busy everyone is there, especially with COVID-19 and the responses to it.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions? I have some, and it's mostly going to be directed towards Director Koike because we've been working on another project that involves other commissions. Is there a formalized process in this? I mean, if you go straight to the council, it seems that you would have to, if you're trying to get these other commissions on board, you want to go to the council with these other commissioners signed on. That was maybe my first concern. And the second one is, I assume that somebody along the way, like the city attorney, will need to review this just because it's involving contacting as a city our elected representatives. So I don't know what the process is, and perhaps Director Koike can share if she knows, or if Commissioner Klinger knows what the process is going to be. I think it needs to be spelled out in part of the discussion.
I mean, my only comment is based on what's currently taking place between the Historical Commission and the Recreation and Parks Commission regarding historical murals, and also the possible renaming of the Ripley Flagler Parquet. I mean, it does, without researching this, it does make sense that you have the commissions, and that would be good to always have strength in joint recommendations before it goes to council. Because also, they have different viewpoints and different expertise, and you might get some interesting feedback from those commissions as well.
Okay, I'm going to leave it to you, Commissioner Klinger, to figure out how you want the wording of your action item so that people can consider it.
The other thing that I do want to do is I've looked for several sources of these, and I'm going to send the resources to Director Koike. But I was wondering if we could get them with just a motion to receive and file them. It's the Easy Reader News article, the LA Times article, the Hopkins Wilderness Park review, and I believe that is it. Like
Okay.
if those could just be received and filed.
Okay. The problem I see is that we don't actually know what we're receiving or filing. Is that something that you could?
Yes, I can. How about I just share my screen with these, because these are super brief.
Okay.
That would be good.
Okay, so. Still trying to figure out the technological aspects of this. There's a reason I'm not on the IT commission. Okay. Share.
Oh, there you go.
Not working?
So explain as you go through what you're sharing.
So this is an article written in the Easy Reader on May 16th, 2014. It's specifically about Wilderness Park. And it just kind of gives some of the interesting details about it.
Okay.
One of the things that I really like about this is it's called Redondo Beach a Seaside Forest, which is very symbolic of Redondo Beach. And you can still see the screen, right, or no?
Yeah, we can still see the screen.
Okay, cool. And then it just kind of talks about how it has 4 distinct ecological habitats and names them, and would be fairly informative and something for us to draw on, because if we're emailing the legislatures, in my experience, they give it to their staff, and the first thing the staff do is they check their sources. So if we provide them with sources, less work for them, they're going to like us more.
Okay.
Commissioner Klinger, are you able to scroll down just so we can see?
This is it.
No, okay.
Like I said, these are very short articles.
Yes, it is. Okay.
I mean, the other thing is you don't want to send your elected representatives really big articles, because then they're going to hate you. This is the LA Times article. Talks about urban
LA Times.
Hmm?
You haven't switched your screen to the LA Times article. You need to move your tab at the top.
My apologies. Screen share. There you go. Oh, sure. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. So this one, Urban Oasis by Condos. Title here is not that impressive, but what I like about this is it documents the history really well. Talks about how we're the only overnight camping area and a popular resting spot for migrating birds and overworked humans. And I know I respond to the latter part very well. And then there's some history about how the missile site program was phased out and how we're supposed to be keeping it as a recreational spot. The trees and also the Chowigna Indian history.
Okay.
So,
By the way, if any commissioners have any questions as we go through this, please speak up. What's the next article?
and the next is just a review that I enjoyed because it kind of encapsulates the reviews that I've seen. So let me, oops, stop share. And since it's only a review, this is super brief, so there you go. That's pretty much it.
Okay. What else? Anything else?
That's it for now because I think we could use this process if the subcommittee does find other things that we could share, but I think this is a great start.
Okay, so you're going to be sending Director Koike the 3 items you just covered, the Easy Reader, the LA Times, and this travel review.
Yes, and the letter template, because it's not an official letter, it's just a template that I wanted to put out there, that's all.
Okay, and when do you think you're going to be able to send that to Director Koike?
Before the end of the meeting, hopefully, as soon as we're done with this item, I plan to jump on it.
Okay, so,
All right.
so it sounds like what we need now is just to receive and file the letter and these 3 articles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I assume you're making your motion. That's your motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Fernandez seconded it. Any further discussion about this?
Just have a quick reminder. Do you remember that before any commission can discuss an item, it needs to be introduced to them, and then they need to vote to place the item on a future agenda. So just keep that in mind as you move forward with your process.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Is there any objection to receiving and filing this this letter template and the 3 articles?
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I'm
Commissioner
so-
Zemsky.
I'm so pleased to hear about this because I have a real emotional commitment to that park. I'm not sure if you saw recently that a couple that was married very recently designated Wilderness Park as the place that they wanted to have people send their wedding gift donations to.
That is awesome.
And then they used the money to buy trees that were planted in Wilderness Park. This was just like within the last month or two. So for their wedding, they asked for donations to buy trees to plant at Wilderness Park. As one of the Beach City's health commissioners, I believe, it was her wedding or their wedding. And then the other connection, my mother-in-law, Lillian Light, started a Sharing Nature with Children program at Wilderness Park 25 years ago.
Cool. Yeah. Well, if you
So
want to,
I'm all for it.
thank you. That sounds awesome. And I'm sure we're probably going to have this item come back to us on the June meeting. So if the health commissioner wants to come in and speak on it, we would love to have it. And sure we could receive and file those comments and have them be part of the letter packet that would be sent out. I think that would be awesome.
Okay, so go ahead, Commissioner Ramsky. You had yourself off of mute. You're still on mute.
The article was in the Beach Reporter, I believe, about the trees, and I think Mayor Brand actually helped plant the trees. So very cool, and I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
I think that was a couple months ago, actually. So, again, is there any further comment on this? Commissioner Pepper, you're off of mute. So, did you want to say something? No.
Oh, I'm just terrible at this. I'm sorry. I'm sitting in the garage on a telephone, just like I got kids running around. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So,
Hey, I'm learning screen sharing 101, so you're good.
So again, is there any objection to receiving and filing this letter and the 3 articles? Okay, hearing none, it's going to be received and filed. And Director Koike, once you do get it, if you can send it out to the rest of the commissioner so we can actually see what the full text of everything is, as well as the full context of the letter, that would be great. Okay, now we move to item J, and the first item is the Brown Act training by City Attorney Michael Webb. My understanding from Director Koike is Mr. Webb sends his apologies and will not be able to attend today. Is that correct?
That is correct. And he knew that that was a possibility, but he did ask us to go ahead and place this item on the agenda. And if he was not able to join us tonight, then he'll join us. This item will be continued to June.
Okay, so we're tabling this until June. Is there a motion to do so? Okay, Commissioner Ramsky, and who's seconding? Commissioner Klinger. Okay, any objections to tabling this until June? Hearing none. Okay, it's tabled to June. Director Koike, just so you know, because this is going to be in my staff recommendation, I think that we may want to call a special meeting in May, invite all the other commissions to come so they can get training from Mr. Webb. We'll talk about that when we get to member referrals. But that may be an accommodation that actually takes care of all the people in the city and also lets us get trained. So moving on to the J2, which is the administrative reports related to the subcommittees. So Director Koike, you want to tee it up?
So this is the time where we will either receive verbal or written reports from the various historical commission subcommittees. And as Chair Morocco mentioned, there are we've received written information on 2 different committees, one the Murals Committee and one Path of History Committee, including the blue folder items.
Thank you. So we'll go through these committees, and for Commissioner Zaremski, if there's something that appeals to you that you want to get involved with, feel free to speak up when we get through them. So on the oral history committee, I will give an oral report saying that I'm continuing to do interviews for oral history. I've got a couple more lined up that I'm hoping to do. I'm switching over and trying to get some real estate brokers as well, because they can relate to the history, the real estate history. So we're moving forward. The goal is still 5 per month to do, and it's a blast. Any questions on that? Okay. And by the way, Director Quickie, is there any public comment on any of the subcommittee reports?
We have not received anything. Katia, did your office receive any comments?
We have not received any comments, no.
Okay, so then we're moving forward. Thank you. Commissioner Klinger, joint fundraising? Any report?
Nothing to report for joint fundraising.
Okay, Commissioner Klinger, museum fundraising?
Not the museum fundraising. This is the traveling museum subcommittee. The subcommittee will have a meeting fairly soonish, and then we'll have a report for the next commission.
Okay, so there is no museum fundraising commission report, and the traveling museum has no report either.
The traveling museum has reported that we'll be meeting up and then have a report for June, and the fundraising one has no report.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we get to the path of history and the virtual path of history, and I wanted to, this one may take a little bit. So we did have a committee meeting, and we also, I understand that Director Koike has some information with regards to how to go about getting this project moving forward. So let me tell you what we have in the packet before you. So you have the written report and recommendations of the committee. You do have the estimates. We managed to contact the person that did the prior work on the signs, and they've given us estimates. And for those of you who aren't familiar, if you go down by City Hall, you actually can see one of the path of history markers over there, but you also have materials in your packet that talk about the design work. So it may ring a bell with regards to how that goes. We got this from the actual design company that did the other path of history markers. In the blue folder item, you have the PowerPoint, and we had learned the impression that the next path of history marker was actually partially funded. Well, the reason you got this PowerPoint is it actually shows that there are 2 markers that are partially funded, one being the Vincent Park Light Enlightenment display, and the other is going to be the old City Hall. So you will see pictures of what those were supposed to be like. And then I attached the CIP, Community Improvement Budget from 2018 to 2023, primarily because that relates to the current period that we're in. And one of the things that I've been trying to find, and maybe Director Koike actually has an answer from the people that do the budget for the city, is how much money has been raised. We made certain commitments to donors if they donated a certain dollar amount. My research seems to think that a lot of the money that's currently there came from actually city funds and not necessarily from donations. But what I got out of, and you can get that out of the CIP budget that was presented, that it may be a lot of it came out of city funds. But it also identifies that the project manager is the community services director. And so our project manager, at least in the interim until May 7th, is going to be Director Koike, and whoever takes over is probably going to end up being the project manager on this one as well. So that's what you have in your packet. What our committee is asking for at this point is that multiple things. One is that we identify 3 North Redondo locations, primarily the Ripley Avenue boundary that separates Rancho Redondo and Rancho San Pedro, historical Redondo Beach Boulevard, and Aviation High School as being adopted as part of the Path of History project, and we'll need a motion to do that. We also want to look at the staircase, the Ainsworth staircase, which is one of the few remaining pieces of the Hotel Redondo, which is now out there. So these 4 different projects that we would like to add as locations actually have physical presence there, that people can stand there and they can actually look at it and understand. Unlike like the plunge, which is no longer there, here you have actual physical structures that are there. So that's the first thing, and I'll go through it once I tell you what they are, and then we can vote on it. The next thing that we're going to ask is to prioritize what we were originally going to do the next 5 locations, but because there's a partial funding of the Old City Hall, it's going to be 6 locations. And what that would do is allow us to activate fundraising for these locations, to collect the pictures, and to start writing and getting historical information so that we can write. And that would be for the two locations that are partially funded, the 3 North Redondo Beach locations, and for the Ainsworth staircase. The third thing that we're looking for, and Director Koike, I did actually find an old contract. This is a process that we may vote on something now, but it still has to go through the city processes. And one of the things that has to happen is that the city needs to enter negotiations with the design firm. I found the contract from the same design firm that gave us the plans that we have. So and that's from a council meeting on November 4th, 2008. And I will send you a copy of it. But we do want the city or the staff or the council to enter contract negotiations so that we can start implementing this process and getting the money and getting the design work once we get all the paperwork going, and so that when we're ready to take it to the next level, we can. And then also to request the council to pay $1,500 to the design firm for the Vincent Park marker consistent with the budget. Again, we're voting on it, doesn't necessarily means it happens that way. The council's the one who approves the disbursements. And so Director Koike knows I actually found one of the resolutions that was done in 2008 that authorized the transfer of money from one to pay for these things. So I will get that to you as well. And then what I would like to see at the June meeting, and we can do it through as a committee or we can do it as a separate agenda item, is to adopt a number of the North Redondo locations as part of the project. The committee can actually take the list that we have and go through and start voting on it and making our recommendations. It would give people at least a month to come up with some other North Redondo Beach locations. And if you look at our February 17th to the 2021 commission meeting, we actually have a report that lists some of them out. If you want to think of others that we can consider as a committee, please send them off to us so that we can consider it. That's including members of the public, or if any of the city officials are listening. We would love to get your input on it. And so that's the recommendations. But I did want, because Director Koike said that she went to some program about how to get the SIP funds, the community improvement funds released, if she can share with us what that process is.
Oh, I attend a monthly capital improvement program meeting in which representatives of different departments talk about the status of projects. And when it came to Path of History this last meeting, I did tell the group, well, I think the historical commission is ready. They've done their homework. They believe that they have enough money from I think it's the balance is 8993 still. And so what is the next step? And so it really is just checking in with our public works department, especially about, I don't know if there's a location, like exactly where it would go, and talk through some details before we enter into any agreement. And obviously, yes, if we need to do an agreement with a company to make the sign, we would have to do that as well. And that obviously goes through our city attorney's office.
So anything that we vote on today is still part of the process, but at least it will move it forward. So I'm going to suggest that we take each of these 4 items up separately. And I'm looking for a motion to that allows us to identify the 3 North Redondo locations that I talked about as part of the project at this point in time, as well as the Ainsworth staircase. Is there any, yes?
Chair, would you please repeat the 3 North Redondo locations?
Sure. So, and each one of them, by the way, has its own separate kind of funding. So there's on Ripley Avenue, there's a boundary that separates Rancho Saucil Redondo and Rancho San Pedro. It's actually a very visible boundary, and it kind of talks about some of the old historical stuff. I would think that it would talk about some of the old Rancho life and how the properties were divided in those days, and it kind of separates North and South Redondo more technically than 190th Street. The second one is historical Redondo Beach Boulevard. At one time it was called Redondo Beach Boulevard, and it's got some rich history on it. It is also close to the library and a couple of other places, so it'll get a lot of foot traffic. The third is Aviation High School, which is on the north end of Redondo Beach where the Performing Arts Center is, and that high school closed in like 1982. And those are the 3 in North Redondo. And then the stairs, if you stand at the top near the Veterans Park, you can actually look down a long set of stairs. If you look to the right, covered underneath all the iving ice plant is the old historic stairs, and the city has actually over the years tried to figure out if they want to restore it. I don't think that's going to be restored, but anybody who goes along the Esplanade can stand there, look at the historical marker, look down at the actual where the old stairs are, and even some of them stick out so you can actually see them. So those are the 3 North Redondo Beach locations and the stairwell that we wanted to add to the project. So is there a motion? Direct Commissioner Zaremski, is there a second?
I move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Second, Commissioner Russell, okay. Any discussion about that? Okay, hearing Commissioner Fernandez, your lights turned on. Not hearing any discussion. Is there any objection to adopting those 4 locations as part of the Path of History project? Okay, hearing none, then that part has passed unanimously. The second motion would pertain to prioritizing our next 6 locations, the 4 that we just voted on as part of the project, plus the 2 that are partially funded, which is Vincent Park and the Old City Hall. What that would do is that since this is already an approved fundraising project of the city, and there's actually a whole commemorative process in it, it would allow us to and I will defer to Director Koike, ultimately activate the fundraising so that we can actually have that added as going to the public and saying, would you voluntarily donate money? So say people who graduated from Aviation High School, we can go to them and say, hey, we would like to put this marker up there. Will you donate to that? So this actually allows us to activate the fundraising, collect the pictures, because at some point we're going to have to write the stuff and find all the stuff and put it all together. And this ties in with the virtual Path of History, because we can start putting those pieces online with regards to that. So that's what I'm looking for, is a motion to prioritize those 6 locations. Is there a motion? Commissioner Pepper moves. Is there a second? Commissioner Zaremski. Is there any further discussion? Okay, no discussion. Is there anybody objecting to having those 6 prioritized, those 6 locations prioritized as our next projects? Okay, hearing no objection, then we are unanimously approving that those are our next 6 locations. The third one is requesting staff for the city council to enter contract negotiations with Hunt Design, who is the one, if you saw in the materials, is the one who did the last 5 projects. They have the template there. We're not committing to anything other than asking the council or the staff to actually explore and enter negotiations. We can't do anything without that.
Right.
Dr. Corky?
I think Hunt Design might be a company that our public works or that our city works with on an ongoing basis, because obviously the city, has a lot of signage needs. So I will look into that to see if there happens to be an existing that we might be able to piggyback, or just kind of how to move forward with that.
Yeah, and I will refer you to the November 4th, 2008 council meeting where Maggie Healy, who was then assistant to the city manager, proposed to the mayor and city council and includes a contract that talks about the different phasings in it. But there is a contract that talks about what was done. In those days, they wanted to put up to $12,000 to do it. You know what we're looking at. So again, it's going to be falling on staff or the council. So I'm looking for a motion to encourage council and staff to enter contract negotiations with Hunt Design. Is there a motion?
I motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Motions. Is there a second? Commissioner Pepper seconds. Is there a further discussion? Okay. So there's no discussion on it. Is there any objection to having, as I said, staff and council enter contract negotiations with Hunt Design? Okay, hearing none, then it's approved, and we'll go on to the next question. And that kind of is hand in hand with the enter to the contract negotiation. This is not binding on anybody because the council ultimately has to do the disbursements, and I think Director Koike is now very familiar with what happened with contracts with outside vendors. But we would like to at least request $1,500 to be allocated from the money that's already in the CIP to go for the design of the Vincent Park marker.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Commissioner Klinger moved and Commissioner Russell second. Any discussion on it? Okay, so is there any objection to the motion to have $1,500 be allocated to the Vincent Park marker from the funds already raised? Okay, seeing and hearing no objection, then the vote is unanimous to have that done. And then I'm going to leave it. I will ask my committee members if you just want to do this through the committee with regards to proposing the North Redondo, other North Redondo locations for the Path of History, or do you want to just have it totally agendized at the next meeting? Any discussion from Commissioner Russell, Pepper, or any other commissioner? Okay.
Could you clarify just what the distinction between the two options that you were just proposing from Morocco?
Sure. So in our February 17th meeting, we came up with some places, and what I'm proposing is that the committee collect from all different sources and different other locations as well. We have a discussion at the committee level. We prioritize what we think should be the next set of locations, and then we present it to the commission so that they can discuss it and vote on it. It would come out of, in one option, it'd come out of the committee reports. In the other option, it'd be a full-blown agenda item such as we had with J1. So
I would think it worked reasonably well. We met as a subcommittee last time. I think that seems like a reasonable way to do it again.
okay. Is Commissioner Russell, you're on board with that? So there's no action that needs to be taken on it then, because it'll come up in our committee meeting and we'll most likely meet once more before the next meeting. So that takes care of path of history. Moment of history. There's no report. I wanted to thank Commissioner Fernandez for doing it this month. We laid out an outline of what we're going to do, so I don't think you're going to be seeing this as a report anymore. And just know, Director Koike, that on future agendas, you'd be written down as the Albert P. Ayers Mendez Moment of History, because that's what we're naming it. Technology and website. Is there a report? Okay. No, there's no report. I did have a question for Director Koike. Could you outline to this committee or to the commission all the steps that are needed to add pages to the city website under our commission or modify it? For example, if we wanted to have virtual locations for the path of history, that we would be able to put it there, or if we wanted to inform people we're fundraising for it, we'd be able to report it there. Or this came up at our committee meeting, if there are special collections of pictures and we want to, have it called the Joel Pepper pictures, that we would be able to actually have a place that we can do it. And it would be helpful, I think, for the committee as well as for the commission to understand what the parameters are to actually appending or adding pages to our website.
Well, each department has the ability to make changes to its own website pages. So we've been slowly working on some changes for the Public Art Commission, just regular updates and things like that. From the tech side, we can do it in our office.
Okay.
So we would just need to talk about the changes you'd like to make. And
Okay, so
if there are any concerns or questions, whether it's about fundraising or things like that, we would talk to either the city manager or city attorneys, whatever makes sense.
okay.
But yeah, we're able to, it's not like we have to put in an order for our IT department or an outside company. We do it in-house.
So just one quick follow-up to that. Would that, if you had an additional web page or content that you wanted on the page, would that be something you'd submit to our commission during a meeting as an agenda item to vote to approve content to be then submitted to the powers that be to then upload that? Or how, just like the nuts and bolts of logistically, if we had content tomorrow, how is that, does it go through the commission or does it go directly to the director?
I think it would be nice to, for any committee to share with the rest of the group, right? Because it's on the historical page. So that's what my suggestion would be.
Okay, so logistically, you would bring it as an agenda item just to let everybody discuss it, put in there, be aware of it before we then put it to the public as like one committee or subcommittee rather.
Right, you could always share it during the subcommittee report. I think all we would ask is that, you kind of look at the website as it is today and look at it in totality, right? So to make, select choices to what you want to see change. So, and then also it's staff time as well. So we just want to be selective about that as we go through and make some changes.
So what I'm hearing you say, Director Koike, is it's still in the discretion of the staff person, i.e. you, whoever replaces you, and you have the ability, if like Commissioner Pepper came to you with some stuff that you wanted to put on the website, that you would be able to exercise your discretion even without necessarily involving the commission.
Right, but I think it represents you as a group. So
right,
I see that if someone has, this is the current website, I'd like to, we think we should really replace this photo and add this photo, I think it's best that the group take a look at it.
So is that something that we could define procedurally going forward and set basically just so the person that comes next as me doesn't, it just seems there's so many procedural issues and all the things that go on in all of the meetings and all just the way the commission operates, that if it was a little bit less nebulous, if we were to just say this is the way it works every single time, like if you have content you bring it to the commission, it must be, rather than, it just still feels like it's ever so slightly ambiguous, like it would be doing a favor to the commission or doing like due diligence rather than like hard and fast procedural rules. And is that something as a commission we could say going forward, that in order to amend the website, it requires submission to the entire commission before moving forward?
My suggestion is that the committee get together and propose some guidelines for us, and then we can have something, hard and fast. That I think ultimately the reason I asked the question the way I did is that I think even if we did, as I'm finding out from the city, is even if we do approve something as a commission, the staff seems to have the ability to override what we do. So I would suggest that you start it as a process, and then we'll bring it to our director, and they'll tell us their input on it, and it'll be part of the process. So maybe just have a committee meeting and think of what you would like the process to be, and then propose it to us at the next meeting. Does that work, Director Koike?
It does.
Okay. Moving forward, historic murals. So I did give a written report. So I just wanted to update you. I did have an opportunity to speak to Rec and Parks Commission last week on this project, and they have appointed Cindy Errata as our liaison. So on it, we're going to try to get a person from Parks and Recs and from Public Arts to move this forward. It's part of the process. And for those of you who don't know who Cindy Errata is, besides being a Recs and Parks Commissioner, she actually was a 5-time chair of our historical commission. I believe she was on the commission for about 10 years. So she brings a wealth of historical knowledge as well as the Parks and Recs knowledge. And I think it's really exciting that we'll have her on board. And hopefully we'll have somebody from Parks and Recs as well. But that's their meeting, I think, is next week. Also on the subject of, at the last meeting, I asked if it was okay to go try to create some lawn signs, because they're a lot cheaper and they're a lot quicker to put up and take off. So I did create one. Our city's birthday is next week. And this is the sign I made. This is the small one. I'm going to move it closer. If anybody has their cell phone, you will notice I put QR codes on this thing. And if you actually QR code into it, you will find that it links to the city library's information as well as our historical page. Since everything communication-wise has to be approved by the city, I figured those are the safest areas to do it in. So I have 2 signs that I would like to be able to put in the public parks. And I did put on here Redondo Beach Historic Commission. So we do need your approval of the sign so that we can put it in public parks. This is the smaller version. And unfortunately, I did no size right away. This is the larger version that is about 36 inches tall. The larger one I would love to be able to put in front of the museum so that somebody who comes by the museum until we're actually able to open it has at least a bit of history out there. They can look at the QR codes, which will take them to resources related to, actually when they go to the city one, they actually get to listen to interviews of from Ken Johnson of old time residents back in the 60s, as well as some of our chronology, as well as what the museum has. So and I would also point out that when I was in front of Parks and Recs, they actually voted that they had no objection to the placement for 90 days of the signs outside the museum and in a parquet. The parquet I think would be really good as the one that's the General Eaton one on Huntington, and that gets a lot of use, as well as if you're interested in me making more of them, they're not that expensive to do, and I'm happy to do that. So I'm looking for two things. One is to approve the signs as we're adopting as part of our commission. Motion. Commissioner Russell, second by Commissioner Pepper. Any discussion on it? Okay.
Commissioner Morocco, I actually live on Huntington, right next
There's
to
a
the
reason
park.
for that park.
So any logistics assistance you need, I'm happy to help.
I appreciate that. One of the benefits is that you can actually see if people are responding to it if it's there.
Well,
And that's
it's funny. The placard that's on the big rock actually fell down a few months back, and the city must have removed it, and there's nothing there. So there's a big nice space that I can put it right in front of.
there's 4 holes in there from what I saw. But anyway, so that's the motion. Any further discussion on it? Okay. Any objection to adopting these signs on a temporary basis? Okay. Hearing none, then that motion carries unanimously. The next part of the motion actually would pertain to Director Koike. As I understand the sign rules in the city, because it's now Redondo Beach Historic Commission sign, it's not subject to the owner's restrictions and putting it in public parks. So I'm going to ask the commission to approve putting in the signs as we did with the Recs and Parks Commission for a period of 90 days. I know it's still subject to your approval as the person who's the director for all that stuff. So what I'm looking for is a motion that we can put it in those locations for a period of 90 days, subject to Director Koike's override ruling it if she needs to. Commissioner Zarensky, is that a motion? Okay, is there a second? Commissioner Fernandez, any discussion?
I just want to make sure that we're not stepping on the Parks and Recs or any other of the commission's toes as we're doing this. You probably know this a lot better than I do, but I just wanted to for you to assuage that concern of mine that we're not stepping on any of our own commissioners, our fellow commissioners' toes with this.
Okay, maybe I didn't say it, but actually asked Parks and Recs if they had any objection to the placement for 90 days, and they unanimously said they didn't have any objection. It's still, again, subject to Director Koike's discretion on how to do it, and I can talk with her offline if this motion passes about how to get her the signs, whether she wants me to put them up or Commissioner Russell to put it up. But we just don't want it to be taken down right away by the, whoever the powers in the
Right.
city that takes down signs.
So then, and I guess this is also to Director Koike. So then would the standard procedure be for us to go and ask Parks and Recs for a 90-day time period, and if they approve it unanimously, and if you approve it, then we can go ahead and vote for the signs to be put up there?
I'm missing something. Parks and Recs already voted to let us put it up.
No,
for
I'm
review.
talking about like in the future too.
Oh.
Like so that we know of a process that's been ongoing, that's been established.
I think as a courtesy, and it would be nice to let them know, to let them see the design of the sign. And it just seems that both your commissions will continue to work together on different projects.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure about that. And you did say it initially, Chair Morocco, I just wanted to also establish a potential path for future endeavor since our two commissions will be working close together.
Okay.
So that's it for me.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Is there any objection to having these 2 signs put up in the Heritage Park and in General Omar Eaton Jr. parquet for a period of 90 days. Okay, hearing no objection, then that motion carries unanimously, and I will work with you, Director Koike, to figure out how we were going to end up implementing that.
That'd be fine.
Okay. Other committees, and this is, again, Directors or Commissioner Zaremski, if you want to jump on any of these, writing competitions and scholarships. These are designed for students to get involved with the history. We don't have any report on that, but it's still there. Our pitch committee, there's no report, and that's designed to actually, if we hear about a community organization that wants to do a historical project, that we can go to them and actually suggest project to them. There's no report on that. Marketing, there's no report on that either. We'll talk about, I guess, during the director's report about the museum reopening at some point. So we'll get to that as well. And then the museum improvement, and this is more towards Commissioner Zaremski. We did at the last meeting attach copies of the Clara report and the Eller Museum report. So if you want to see what was done before you got on the commission, that's kind of what's out there. We're going to be dealing hopefully with that once we get the museum back open, so you all can go over there and hopefully come up with a better design for the museum itself. So those are the subcommittee reports or the committee reports. I assume we didn't have any public comment on it, so we'll move on. The next thing on our agenda is the director report.
Director's report. I just have a few items, tidbits. Some are related directly to the Historical Commission, and some are just general pieces of information that you may be interested about. So as Chair Morocco mentioned at the April 21 Recreation and Parks Commission meeting, in addition to speaking to the commission about murals, Chair Morocco also gave a presentation on the possible renaming of the Flagler Ripley Parquet. As you recall, it's the thought is to commemorate the Ito family at that park. And so after the presentation, it was a brief conversation, but the Recreation Park Commission also voted unanimously to move this item forward. So I guess the next step would be to take it to council.
Do you know when that's going to happen?
I do not know.
Okay. Do you know who's writing up that recommendation to the council?
I could start it, because I have this, and I'll probably be in touch with you to add more information to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair Morocco also mentioned the Historical Museum. Even though museums in LA County are able to open with restricted capacity, the museum is has not been reopened. My understanding is the museum has one volunteer, a gentleman named Tyke, and we did contact him. At this time, he's not able to volunteer, so therefore the museum is not open. So the one thing I just wanted to throw out, and maybe as a group you can, might have ideas, but obviously we have no volunteers. So I'm sure, Chair, that is one area that you've always wanted to kind of build in terms of volunteers.
So just to respond to that, as I started the meeting, talking about the purpose of our commission, it used to be that everybody that was a commissioner was a volunteer at the museum. That may be something we have to explore. We have limited hours, and that's something that we're not going to force people on, but if it's something that you're interested in doing, please either contact myself or Director Koike so that we can explore whether we want to. We have a docent training program for many years ago that probably still works, but there are some logistical things if you do volunteer that you may want to be aware of. And they also have to comply with the city's COVID protocol, which I'm not sure how that's going to play with non-city staff and as opposed to just straightforward volunteers. Direct
May I
Commissioner
ask?
Menke? Yes.
What would that involve? If I were to volunteer to do that function, what would that involve?
So the way it was done before is, and I would actually recommend we do it in pairs so that it's not overwhelming for people. But Tyke, who is the city clerk that does it, actually welcomes everybody, and he created a display case of all sorts of historic stuff. So you're explaining to them what's going on there. Ultimately, I think we're going to try to do it so that we can actually do something with our cell phone, for example, so we can plan these tours. But there's displays, and when you look at if you have your phone and you click on this first QR code, it will take you to the page in the city website that actually describes each of the rooms in the museum. And so we just basically are hosts and take people around. It used to be they used to sell books, but I don't think we've been doing that anymore. And that's kind of, so I think we were open from 12 to 4 or something like that on weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. So it's doable, but Director Koike's really got to talk with the city manager and see what he wants on that. You're muted, Commissioner Zaremski, so I can't hear
Oh
you.
my God. I've been doing this for 15 months and I still can't get the mute and unmute. So before I volunteer for anything, I've learned over the years that I need to understand the actual commitment that I'm making. So is this done, in the future, would this be done by shifts? For example, I would volunteer to do a Saturday 4-hour shift. That's what I'm about. I always want to know what I'm volunteering for, because that's actually something I'd be more than willing to do, but I wanted to know about the time commitment.
So my suggestion is that one of the first things you do is volunteer right now to be part of the planning group to come up with the protocols. That may be the most helpful for Director Koike and the rest of the city to kind of come up with some ideas for it.
I'm willing to volunteer to do that.
Okay. That's great. Then we got to start, and I can help you if you need any help with it too, because I've probably have been there more times hearing Tyke stories than most people have over the last several years. Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Director Koike. This is your report. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's a good conversation. And then I don't know if you've driven by the Murals Historical House recently. I went to Dominguez Park for something the other day, and it's nice and bright and new. So it's done, and I guess it'll darken over time, but it's nice and obvious and new. So, and I think that's specifically for Historical Commission all I have. Just to give you just a general idea of other items going on. City Council is currently discussing the possibility of fireworks for 4th of July. We will be taking another item back on May 4 because there are different pieces in play. Right now, we're leaning towards having a land-based fireworks show kind of in back of Seaside Lagoon. One of the issues that I think is on everyone's mind is, COVID and in July, are we going to, continue to make great progress, or, are we going to have a surge here or there? And so doing a land-based fireworks show really decreases the cost of a barge, which we would likely lose some of the refund if we, did a cancellation last minute. And the Riviera Village Association is also pondering having an offshore barge display as well. So stay tuned for that. Seaside Lagoon, we do plan to open it June 15th for a modified season, because obviously we typically open Memorial Day. Usually the season is Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we'll open late and then we'll have to close early, but for a good reason, and that's the planning of the Beach Life Festival, which they announced their dates, I think, September 10 to 12. So that at this time is moving forward. Next, anyone who needs a passport, the community services building on Artesia has been closed since March to the public. But overwhelmingly, the one service that people want and obviously need to come to the office is passports. So that will start on May 3, and people can set, it's by appointment only. But May 3 is a big day for us. I mentioned libraries. They opened, both branches opened April 19. And the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center is really still not open or hosting events. But if you've driven by, you might have noticed the marquee has been replaced and looks much better than it did before. So those are my tidbits for the director's report.
Any questions of Director Koike? Okay, I do have 3 questions. So, three. This came out as a result of our committee meeting, which I think it would be helpful if you could explain this attendance requirement and excused absences, because some of the commissioners on my committee weren't familiar with that, and we haven't gotten all the full training, I think.
Well, the best thing is, and I believe former Director LaRock sent it to you before he left, and I might have resent it, but there is the handbook, the commission handbook, that I will send to you, and it clearly, it differentiates the difference between an excused absence, which is in advance, versus a non-excused that we don't hear from you prior to the meeting. And then there are different, I think it's 3 absences. You could potentially lose your commission position, but it's best if I send it to you. So I'll add that to my list to send to all of you.
Okay. And then
the commission handbook is provided by our city clerk's office.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ramsky.
May I ask a question? Just a couple of comments. Technologically, for some reason, my email, maybe it was a spam thing, but I wasn't receiving communication from the city about the commission meetings. I don't know if that's sent out solely by email, or is there a way for that to be sent through snail mail or texting or telephoning? Because I had missed all of these meetings, and I actually think I didn't get the email, maybe because it got stuck in my spam. So my question is there a way for the city to communicate with the commission members about meetings other than via email? And my second comment, if I may, I just wanted to mention regarding the Redondo Beach Performing Arts venue, even though it may be closed, last weekend there was an event held there that was publicized through the city for an event to raise awareness about anti-violence towards the Asian American Pacific Island population. And I attended it, and it was just lovely.
Yes, so the person who manages the Performing Arts Center did a great job with working with the volunteers for that. So thank you for that feedback.
Okay, and then my second question, where are we in the hiring process of a new community services director? I heard yesterday's council meeting it was at the end of the process, but are they at the point where they're offering somebody a position?
I don't know the specific details, but I do know that it's towards the end of the process, and as soon as we can share information, we will.
Okay. And then lastly, can you share with our commission and any community members that are listening about these utility boxes that the public arts are doing? Because I think it's it ties in with what we're doing, but it also is kind of a nice little thing that people around the city may want to know about.
So I think it started around 2015, but I think, a lot of cities have this program where they identify utility boxes or signal boxes and wrap it with vinyl of different artist designs. And so at the council meeting last night, they approved 10 different locations, which means 2 in each district, with the artwork selected by Public Art Commission. So that's exciting because I think right now we only have 10, but we have an inventory of about 80 boxes. When you drive around, you see them all over. And so they collected artwork from many different artists, probably since the beginning, but they update it every year with a call for artists. And the next step is the next phase, which is another 5 boxes. So you should in the near future see some new artwork in town.
Great.
Fun programs.
Okay. So that's all you have to add at this point?
That is it.
So let's move on to the next thing, which is item K, member items and referrals to staff. I'm going to start with my upper left-hand box and then go down. So Commissioner Fernandez, you're up first. Do you have any member items or referrals?
Not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Russell? No? Okay. Commissioner Klinger? You're muted. Do you have something, or are you just?
I should go off of mute. It's technical progress here. So I sent out the email with the 4 attachments. I'm just wondering if you've received it.
I guess that's directed to Director Koike.
Yeah. There are 4 attachments, so I will forward this.
Perfect. And append it to the minutes.
We'll also attach it to the minutes.
Perfect.
And just as we start, sending and sharing information, just want to remind everyone that if you wanted to send a note back to me or communicate with another commissioner, please don't do reply all. So that's just a friendly reminder.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, it's lots of rules. So it's good that you're keeping us on track. So for my only other referral is about the presidential letter. I know it was mentioned by Chairman Morocco in the previous meeting, and I brought it up before then. But now that the library is open, would it be possible to check on it, or maybe a historical commissioner can go into the library or the Performing Arts Center and see where that's at? The presidential letter that was signed by 5 presidents for Redondo Beach.
I don't think we know where it is at this point. And
yeah. Chair Morocco did ask about it, and he thought it might be in one of the offices at the Performing Arts Center, but I did ask, and there isn't nothing presidential in there.
Mm-hmm. So, is there any way that one of us or 2 of us can help out and figure out what's going on with that letter?
I think he's volunteering to help you locate the letter, the series of letters in the frame.
I don't know where it could possibly be. If you have any questions or any suggestions, we could look. maybe, it's possible once we get a little further down the road away from COVID, we can invite you over. But until then, if you have some suggestions of where to look, we can do that for you.
I mean, the last place that I remember was in the library storage, but I'm not sure if that was checked out or not. That was about the only place I remember. And thank you so much for taking care of us. I know it's a lot, so that's just my only two referrals. It's just that letter had 5 presidential signatures on it for our small city. So it's definitely, like, for me, it's an important historical landmark for the city. That's why I'm being keen on it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So noted.
Commissioner Zaremski, any comments or member referrals? Okay. Commissioner Pepper.
Nothing here. Thank you.
Okay. I
I apologize. I did just want to again say that event at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center was absolutely lovely. And the hula dancers, oh my goodness. Whoever did that, please pass on my appreciation. It was really a lovely event.
All right. I will. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I have 2 items. They're both brief. One, do we have an update on the business cards yet for the commissions?
No.
Okay. And then the second thing, and this is alluded to this bicycle spoke thing that Commissioner Klinger did. I will ask if there's any interest in calling for a special meeting in May specifically to just do the Brown Act training at that time and invite all the other commissioners to our meeting and see if we can get a date that rather than Mr. Webb doing it for all the different commissions. They used to have one massive session and maybe just having an optional time. If we can't get them, then we won't have a quorum. But if we can, if that's something that the new commissioners who haven't gone through their training are interested, now's a good time to say whether you want something like that or not.
Is that via Zoom?
It would be via Zoom.
Isn't that a mandatory thing that we all need to do?
You haven't, well, you've been on the commission for over a year now, and you haven't had an opportunity to go to any of these sessions. And all the other commissioners have been on this is their third meeting. So they haven't had an opportunity. So mandatory or not mandatory, I've been trying to get you the information you need to know so that you don't run afoul of the city rules or the state rules. And so,
Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in doing that.
Okay.
Chair Morocco, in terms of that idea, it would need to be, I'd need to check in with the city clerk's office on that.
Well, I would seem that you'd want the city attorney. I'm not sure what the city, I
the
guess
city-
you would need to check with the city manager to see if we're allowed to have a special meeting during the COVID restrictions, but.
Yeah, the city clerk, oversees all the meetings. So that would, you hit the nail on the head in terms of a special meeting, but also, pre-COVID, they would host, such a meeting. They're the ones that do the handbook. So I will tonight send an email off to the city clerk's office to see if that's something that they would be interested in.
Okay, but the question I'm asking if our commission wants to call a special meeting, and then if the city clerk says no, then it would basically go by the wayside. But that's the question, and I leave it to you. I've done the training already. If that's something you're interested, so at least tell Director Koike that you're interested in it so that maybe she can start compiling with all the commissions. You have commissioners that really would like to get that kind of training.
And I am confident that as soon as the city attorney schedule allows for it, that he will be able to give you that training. And that is in due to Chair Morocco's persistence in terms of asking him for that important training. So.
Yeah, and he's scheduled for us for June apparently, so we're fine on that. But I'm
So
leaving
you'll be
it to
fine.
you guys to decide. What?
So you'll be fine. You will definitely get that training.
Okay, and then I guess for the last point, and Director Koike brought it to my attention, and it pertains to a couple of you. Your terms expire in September, and there's some deadlines coming up. And I don't remember offhand, but I think at least two of you have to reapply for a commission appointment because you're on a short term. Do you have that information, Director Koike?
I did. So
I may have it on my
must
phone.
have been
still.
partial terms, huh? So Commissioner Pepper and Fernandez, you were appointed just in December of 20, but you must have taken over for some vacancies. That was
I
about
think
long
that-
ago.
I think that's how it worked out. I really don't know.
So the terms expire at the end of September 1.
But I think there was like a June deadline or something coming up before our next meeting that they have to get the applications
Yes.
back in.
City Council set Friday, June 11th at 5:30 is the deadline for receiving applications for appointment to city commissions. There's going to be a notice regarding all vacancy that will be published in the newspaper and at City Hall's bulletin board. Meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 13 to interview applicants. And then the council members will submit the recommendations to the mayor by Wednesday, August 4. And then the mayor will make commission appointments at the regular scheduled city council meeting on August 17th.
I just wanted you guys to be aware that that's out there as a deadline, and it would sneak up on us otherwise.
Thank you.
So
Just a quick pro tip for, I've been serving on here the longest. Usually if you go to the July 13th meeting and just go into what you've done for the historical commission, however brief it was, and who's supporting you here, and I think right now we have a great commission, they'll most likely reappoint you, like if you just show them that commitment. And that's how I got reappointed. I went there and then I've explained what was going on, some of the projects that we were working on, and I was reappointed. So
I just wanted you to be aware of the process that's out there, because otherwise you'd find that we actually had one commissioner who didn't reapply, and I think he would have liked to have been back on the commission. Okay, so
Just on that note, I will forward you the administrative report from last night because it does have a link for the application. So I'll send it to you both separately.
okay. So any other member items or referrals to staff?
also just a quick note, if you have any questions about the application process, feel free to reach out to me by email, just first name, last name, liaklinger@gmail.com. But make sure that I'm the only one on there. That way it's not in Richard Brown Act rules.
Okay. Okay. Any other member items or referrals before I move to the next part of the meeting? Okay, and that's the adjournment part. And our next meeting of Redondo Beach Historical Commission will be a regular meeting held at 7 p.m. on June 16th, 2021. It looks like it's still going to be via teleconference or Zoom, at least according to what's on the agenda.
At this point in time, yes.
Yeah, and I only think the council chambers are going to be ready anyway. So my question is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, you can pick whoever you want. It looked like everybody was moving. And whoever wasn't, I assume is the second. So any objection to adjourning? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned as a commission. Thank you very much for
Good meeting, everyone. Have a good evening.